What's up, guys? Back here again with the Eclipse. Today we're going to do a cylinder leak down test on it to figure out what's actually wrong. I'm assuming it's rings or cracked pistons, but if we're lucky enough, which probably not, it'll be a blown head gasket, and I have all the stuff to do that inside so we can bring it back sooner than I thought. But thinking the worst case scenario, it'll probably pop some rings. So let's get into that a little bit. We're going to start off. Because the compression is so bad, I can't use my little trick on any cylinder but number 4, which I'll show you guys at the end. But we're going to start, remove your spark plugs, remove your coil pack, spark plug wires, and we're going to remove the valve cover so we can look at the camshafts and make sure that it's closed and on the compression stroke to do this test. And then we're also going to make sure the piston is at top dead center. So let's start that right now. Before we officially start this video, I figured it'd be easier to show you on the engine on the stand, the 4G63. So what I'm doing when we're watching that rod, just in case you don't know, is we're getting the piston all the way to top dead center. And you might not be able to notice, but right now it should be at its dwell point. So you have a split second when you're turning the crank that everything is top dead center and the piston is flush, and that's what we're looking for, so it doesn't shoot its way back down. Because like if you have it right there, or same way you go back and it's right there, it could push the piston down and then fling your crankshaft if you have your ratchet on there, all that good shit. But yeah, I mean, that's what we're doing, is making sure we're spinning it over, and then the same thing. And the corresponding cylinders are the same on the 420A that are on the same as a 4G63, 1 and 4, 2 and 3. So like if 1's on compression, 4 is on exhaust. Same thing with 2 and 3. And that's what we're looking at right now. So really, like we're compression, exhaust. So really, if you just want to rotate one full revolution, 360 degrees. Now 4 is on compression and 1 is on exhaust. And you can do 1 and 4, 2 and 3 at the same time, rather than doing what I did, 1, 2, 3, 4. Or you can do what I did, that's fine too. But hopefully that made it a little easier for you before you get into the video. Alright guys, what I went over before, we're gonna start by removing the coil pack, which you'll undo that little red latch there. This was a little, I guess it's not tight after all the oil. We unplug it. All my connections are still the same. The only difference on mine compared to yours is since I am have a mega squirt, my grounds for the quad spark are right here. Instead, you guys won't have to worry about that, but you'll remove all these bolts. There's some in the center, some on the outsides, and that's one of them that shot out. Have to redo those threads with a helicoil. But next, to the valve cover. I can't find a deep well socket, so some we'll do with a wrench and some we won't. have the valve cover off, we can actually see these cams were breaking in all right. A little bit of extra wear compared to what it was. Maybe, well, definitely not a lack of oil to the top, just the way they were breaking in. They weren't too old, not too many miles on them. But what we're going to do now is we're looking at the lobes on the camshafts, and as we spin it over, we want to make sure the more egg-shaped parts are pointed up, which that will indicate that the valves are both, or on each, the intake and the exhaust are closed and only a compression stroke. So we'll turn it over until it gets to that, and then we'll put something in the cylinder to make sure the piston is at top dead center, and then we'll actually do the cylinder leak down test. Alright, so we'll start. What you're going to do is get your air pressure up. You'll go to the set area, which I should have started by saying you're going to need an air compressor and a cylinder leak down tester, but maybe that's, hopefully that's a given, maybe not. Just get it as close to 0 as you can, and then you'll lock it in. And once you do that, you'll hook your ooh, look at that leakage. Okay, so the valve cover's off, so we can't generally do it, but what we're looking for right now is where the air is coming from, which could be your crankcase, it could be your coolant, just in case of crackhead or head gasket, or your intake. So I probably should have pulled that off, but with how loud that is, it's pretty evident that it's coming through the crankcase, which means, at least for cylinder number 1, we have bad rings. It's like, yeah, you can't hear it, but like you mess with your hand in there, you can kind of hear the sound change a little bit, which is what we're doing. You could always go back to your exhaust. You'll do intake, exhaust, coolant, and combustion chamber. And then once you figure out that, you can kind of figure out more so on what's wrong. But I can put my head right here, like just in case you have your valve cover off. There's that little hole right there, which is an oil return. You kind of can see it maybe. I can feel a lot of air coming out of there. And then, so to go off the gauge a little bit, I know what it says, yada yada yada, they say it's okay. So really anything more than 20% is crap. And then we are at 92 or so. So she's toast. So what we'll do now is, now that we have that set, we'll move on to the second cylinder, and then so on and so forth. So a good way to show you now that we have it off is that this is starting on the intake stroke for cylinder number 1. You can kind of see that the valves are starting to open because they're not quite there yet. And same thing, cylinder number 2, the little eggs are pointed outwards, so there's no compression on those. And then we're at the highest point, so we'll get that back in there and do this one too. All right, about 91% leakage on cylinder number 2. Same thing, go around, check your stuff. But same thing on this one, I can feel oil coming out of the oil returns, which means air is going in the butt. So no need to dwell on it, time to move to cylinder number 3. Back into it again. And cylinder 4 was the only good cylinder left, so hopefully it's a good indication on what it is, or how a good cylinder should be. So you'll be able to see what it looks like when it's fine and when it's toast. Just always make sure, always, before you tear an engine down, you should do this test before, so you don't waste your money on parts you don't need. So a little under 90, not terrible. Well, it's terrible, but not as bad as the other two. Same thing, I can smell oil coming up, you can feel the air coming into your nose. So, bad crankcase, pressures again. And now, just to show you my little trick that some of you might know if you're mechanics, maybe some of you are afraid to try because it is kind of scary. But if you don't feel like pulling the valve covers, this is the best way to do it. And if it is on the compression stroke, which it doesn't look like it, this piston's going to shoot down. Which it's not, because it shows leakage. So what we're going to do now is turn the crank until you feel a slight pressure. Once you start feeling pressure, just stop. Like that right there, it's on its compression stroke because it's fighting me. So once you know you found the compression stroke, take the air off, get your hose out, put your dowel in there and figure out where your piston's at. And you notice that that's really the only cylinder that's going to fight me, so it's the only one I could show you on. And then you go up until it bottoms out, like I said before. So right there, give or take, is your dwell point. Take that out. For this one, definitely make sure you take off your breaker bar or your ratchet, whatever you got, because the piston might move. Just because I have it at its dwelling point doesn't mean it might not shoot down. Huh? No. So that's how you know you have your dwell point, is that nothing moved. So you know you're good. So this is my only good cylinder left. The leakage is more than I'd like anyway, but it is technically within spec. And obviously the engine's gonna have to get torn down. So roughly that's what a good cylinder should look like, is that right there. So we know we're done with the test, 1, 2, and 3. Bad crankcase, pressures, bad pistons, whatever you want to call it, bad rings. We won't know until we get in there, but now we know it needs to be torn down. And then cylinder number 4 is the only good one. If you wanted to be cheap, you could just reuse the rings on that cylinder. It's not recommended. If you're in there, you might as well finish being in there. But to end the video, I'll just take the camera. To end the video, let me just ask you guys what you guys would like to see done with this car. The cheapest and more viable option for me would be to do a Frankenstein Evo swap, which would be getting a Hyundai Sonata head or a Santa Fe head out of the same years as a 2.4. Take one of those heads, get a third generation Eclipse bottom end, third gen trans, make some crap work. It'll probably be the more viable option because there's so many 4G63 parts laying around that I can get away with using. So I can make a D-stroke 2.4 down to like a 2.1 and a Frankenstein Evo engine, get the most power out of, things like that. Keeping it 420A, keeping it the same way, building it properly, redoing everything that it did crappy before, will be substantially more. And the only reason I say that is because I can get a parts car for a third gen Eclipse and then sell parts off of it. All I need is the bottom end. I can sell the pistons, I can sell rods, pistons, I can sell the head. I won't need that. I can sell all the body panels. I need the trans, need the shift cables. But pretty much everything else will be fair game. So I can get away with selling all that, kind of recuperating some of my money. And then all the 4G63 bottom end parts from a 7-bolt should work. And then really, I mean, go from there. It'll definitely be the most powerhouse for the money, but the most time. And then rebuilding the 428 for power, depending on the machine work needed. If it's literally just parts, I don't need to machine anything. I'm looking at about $1,500, and that depends on if they still sell parts when I'm actually able to buy them. Because I'm thinking about doing the RAM charger stuff first. Because I mean, that'll be cool to see anyway, and I'll have more power out of it. And my wife really wanted to help me build that thing. And the Eclipse, I won't get anywhere near the same amount of power that I will the RAM charger. So that's what I'm thinking about doing first. But if you made it this far, let me know in the comments what you think I should do. If you like the video, please like, share, subscribe, keep it going. Let me know in the comments what you want me to do. And thank you for watching. Have a good day.